Good morning. No, this isn't the tech channel. Welcome back to Taylosive EV live on YouTube. I'm not going to be my tip-top chipper self as usual. I still want to stream. I feel like we haven't streamed on this channel in a very, very long time. I love the real-time interaction with you guys. I love reading the chat on the Model 3 display, so that's how I'm keeping up with you guys, but I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. I apologize if my voice and my sniffles are a little annoying or distracting. I've got some hot tea here that my lovely wife made for me with some honey in it. So I'm hoping that helps my voice a bit. I'm also kind of experimenting with this stream to see if I'm needing to take some time off of work or if I can kind of push through it. So we're in experimental territory here. We're in uncharted 1000 volt architecture territory, if you will. So, the first topic that is definitely on the top of my mind, of course, we don't have to talk just about what's in the title and thumbnail, but the Cybertruck sightings have continued. They have not slowed down since the last couple videos I've done on them, except more recently, they've actually started like taking them off of trailers and delivering them at what appears to not just be Tesla's headquarters. Now they seem to be dropping them off at more service center type locations, and because they keep building them and shipping them out, in my opinion, like I think we're kind of past the point of, oh, well, these are all crash test dummies. Like they're all meant to be crash tested, because we knew Tesla was crash testing the Cybertruck back on April Fool's Day. They posted that funny little video of it never actually crashing. Um, there was a few on trailers labeled for crash testing, and there was some going to Michigan, there was some in New Mexico, there was some in Fremont, and of course there's still some in Texas. People are spotting them all the time. So I guess the debate now that I kind of want to gauge the chat on, I want to get your guys' take, is like, what are their plans essentially? Like, what do you think the reasoning is behind sending all these Cybertrucks everywhere? There's a theory that I really, really like, but that I don't believe because it honestly just sounds a little too good to be true. But one that I've seen pitched around was that with the Cybertruck delivery event, now, we don't know when it's happening, but they are selling it in the referral program. Um, that they want to do some kind of nationwide milestone where not only do they have the delivery event in Texas, but they also start delivering all across the country in different regions based on where the most demand is for the Cybertruck. And that would be amazing, if they had an event like that where they're like, we're delivering our first now and we're delivering some all across the country simultaneously, so that, the people get the impression this is a real truck. It wasn't some exclusive event only delivery type thing, but you see them everywhere. That would be really cool, but I don't personally think that's it. Especially because of this new document that's been floating around thanks to Gregor Truck, who me and him have been talking with back and forth for the past week quite a bit. But here there was this leaked document that looks pretty legit to me. Hopefully you guys can see it here. Yeah. But this is a Tesla service document, and it's the first time we've seen one where you have to select which model it is. And Cybertruck is on the list. I guess this could be faked pretty easily, but it would explain why there's actual Cybertrucks showing up at service centers all the time, all across the country. What's funny to me is they have to list the color. Do they have to put a color for Cybertruck? Or anyway, Jackson says, I think it's the advertising argument, place them in locations for people to see in person. Oh, so you mean like put them in showrooms? That's a decent theory. I wouldn't say that's impossible. I won't even say that's unlikely, but the only argument I would have against Cybertruck advertising is this is by far the vehicle Tesla needs to advertise the least. Literally just building the truck and putting it on a truck and driving that truck around is way more advertisement than pretty much any other vehicle. Um, you'd have to spend millions of dollars to get that kind of advertising campaign. The Cybertruck is its own advertisement, right? Like, it's not like an F-150 Lightning where that truck, or even the Hummer EV. Funny story, I actually, for the first time in the wild, I saw a Hummer EV 2 days ago, was actually surprisingly close to my house, which is weird because I do not live in a major city. I'm in a pretty rural area. But I was just driving around, my back roads here where I normally drive, and there was just a Hummer EV. I was like, what the heck? I was really confused. But even then, my wife didn't notice it. Same thing with F-150 Lightnings. You could pass 90 on the freeway, and no one would probably point it out in the car unless you're an EV nerd like I am. I'd be like, "See, you can tell it's the Lightning because of the little light bar and everything." Um, but the Cybertruck, that has a lot harder time not getting noticed. Pretty much everywhere you drive that thing, people are going to point at it, ask questions. Um, and there's so many reservations for the Cybertruck already. There's so many people that want one that I'm like, why would you try to advertise it like at this point? You can't build enough of them. We still don't know the range and the price, which is in a lot of people's view the most important specs. Um, Hey Ivan, yes, it has been a while since the last live stream. I agree, it's been too long. My original goal was to do one of these things a week, but it's just been so busy. There's so much stuff in my personal life coming up. I gotta take off right after this live stream. I'm heading out again. Um, it's just busy stuff. And I was like, now I'm not feeling well, and I was like, oh, I was supposed to do a stream. I really wanted to do a stream. Ben says, any sightings on the tailgate ramp? Unfortunately, no. If I were to guess, my prediction is that the tailgate ramp has been scrapped, but I really, really hope I'm wrong. I just feel like there's so many other details we've spotted, like the frunk has been opened a lot. The vault has been seen open and closed. We've seen the Cybertruck supercharging quite a bit, especially at Giga Texas, but I have not seen a single person showcase the tailgate ramp. Hopefully, they really have that. Um, Let's see. I've never had to sign any form for service. No, it's not for you, Lay. It's for the Tesla employees. When the Tesla employee is filling out the service paperwork, they have to fill all that out. I don't think it's a customer thing. Um, Thanks for doing this, Drew. Hope you feel better soon. Thank you, Fearsome Beard. That's an awesome name, by the way. Fearsome Beard. I have a more uh afraid beard. It's so patchy. But hopefully one day it's fearsome. Training mechanics, though, I do think is probably the best bet, which is, I don't know if that's something they've done previously. I guess the last few Tesla vehicle launches have been pretty easy to keep under the radar, the HD radar, I should say. But yeah, when they first started building Model Ys, I don't recall them bringing them to delivery centers and stuff. I remember some winter testing and a few sightings in Fremont, but it feels like they're sending them all over the place. Like, I guess maybe because they're more boring looking vehicles and they're more traditional in their design, it's probably easier to transport them under the radar. They're also physically smaller. You could probably fit a lot of Model Ys on a carrier and then cover the carrier up. Cybertruck's a lot bigger, probably a lot heavier, so it'll be trickier to transport that thing without people noticing. If I turn down right now because of long work call, oh, no worries, Mike. The stream will be available for everybody after the fact. Um, Probably going to showrooms because most of these are release candidates and can't be delivered to customers, but they're identical to what customers are going to get. Show them off rather than waste. Well, yeah, I think there's a few uses for them. Um, Showroom could definitely make sense, but service training I think would make a lot of sense because these are brand new vehicles with brand new manufacturing techniques and a brand new voltage architecture. This doesn't even have a 12-volt battery like every other Tesla has. This is a 48-volt battery. We don't even know where that battery is, especially based on how much the frunk eats into that frontal space on the Cybertruck. It's probably important for lots of Tesla service employees to get familiar with the truck, understand it, get where the parts go, how to take it apart, and that kind of thing. Uh, Darren Workman says, what do you think about this rumor that folks taking delivery of the Cybertruck at the event were told to expect the price tag to be around mid to upper 70s? Do you think that's dual or try? I would guess dual, but personally, I think the whole original configurator or the original specs have been completely thrown out. Like, I don't think it's just a coincidence that Tesla removed all pricing and range information from the website. So I don't think there's necessarily going to be like the tri motor has to be 500-mile range and the dual motor has to be 300. Like, it could be. Honestly, there's a better argument to be made that the dual motor should have more range than the tri motor, but like Tesla, for better or for worse, is adaptive. They are quick. They iterate. They change plans. They change techniques. They adjust things all the time. It's the same thing with SpaceX. You know, they'll have one design of the rocket, and then they'll go, never mind, that rocket's not good or too expensive. Let's switch to this different design. You know, I've seen them iterate on the Starship design. I remember back when it was called the BFR, the Big Falcon rocket, or another little word in the middle you could imagine. Um, and that was a totally different design. And originally they were going to make it all of carbon fiber, and then they realized that was going to be way too expensive, and all of the cooling in the special material you'd have to wrap that carbon fiber with to keep it cool enough when it re-enters the atmosphere. They were like, you know, this probably just isn't worth it. The weight savings aren't that good, so let's switch to steel. So same thing with SpaceX and Tesla. They switch and they change plans all the time. So personally, I think way too many people are holding too much credit or value in the original Cybertruck unveiling, which they don't even have public, by the way. Tesla took down the Cybertruck event, the unveiling. It's not on the website. It's not on their YouTube channel, and I think that's intentional. I don't think they took down all of that pricing info and all that range info for no reason. It's because they realized that they probably have changed plans multiple times. I'm sure there was still a quad motor up for debate a few months ago, and then they probably realized along the way maybe quad motor's too complicated or it's too expensive. Um, so it could be a tri motor to justify a higher price. I wouldn't be shocked if the launch edition Cybertruck sits around 80K, but personally, I don't expect the ramp up to be insanely quick considering how high the demand is, which is why I'm trying to tell people not don't get so obsessed on the launch price, because Tesla fluctuates their pricing all the time. And because of that, the price might change 5 or 10 times before your Cybertruck order is ready. So just because maybe the first few employees taking delivery get it for 80,000, that doesn't mean you're going to get it for 80,000. In my opinion, it's more likely they'll my thought process, which is kind of evil, but I've seen Tesla do some kind of businessy, scummy things in the past. Um, my prediction is that when it's employee only deliveries, they're going to cap it at 80,000, you know, 79,990, so that everybody gets their $7,500 credit. But then once they start opening it to non-employees, they might raise the price to 85,90, well over 100 grand. We've seen Tesla do this. They basically price their vehicles according to how much supply they have and how much demand there is. And there's never been more demand for a vehicle than there has been the Cybertruck. So when demand is this high, it makes no sense for Tesla to keep prices low, other than just, well, it would be nice. But yet usually doesn't work with, you know, it'd be nice if they just gave everyone FSD for free too. They could, you know, we all have the hardware for it, but they don't, obviously, because that's not as profitable. Same thing with the Cybertruck. What about the Model X makes it my dream car? Oh, it's Hasael in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Um, I guess I love the auto presenting doors. I love the windshield that goes all the way back, and the Falcon Wing doors I think are really cool. I like how aerodynamic it is for the size. I think it's pretty much as efficient you can get a vehicle that big. I can't visualize. I'm a big efficiency nut. Like I love cars that are super aerodynamic and use very little energy. And sure, the Model X is not the most efficient Tesla, but for a vehicle that can sit 7 people, and I mean, you know, people, not kids, the Model X is far more comfortable of a 7-seater than the Model Y 7-seater, which is like barely hitting the definition of 7-seater. But I've sat in a Model X second row and third row, and I find it far more spacious and far more comfortable than the Model Y 7-seater. And it's got a huge frunk. A lot of people don't like the design. I like the design, but anyway. Let's keep it on Cybertruck for now. Jacob says training engineers with these also makes sense since they can't sell them. Right. Yeah, I think that I think a lot of us might agree with that. Jackson Smith says, I think showrooms will allow for so many customers to post videos of them in person and act like you said, give free advertising. They could, but again, I don't think there's a need to advertise the Cybertruck. They have okay. Last we heard, there was around 2 million reservations. I understand most of those won't go through. I'm anticipating about 80% of those won't go through. Because a lot of people have more than one reservation. I heard one guy has like 200 Cybertruck reservations. Some people have 10, some people have 50. Most people have two or three. Pretty much everybody I know who reserved a Cybertruck has more than one. Um, I know Randy's household has two reservations. I know Mike has two, and I know Nick has like three or maybe four. Um, yeah, the auto presenting doors are awesome. I would like the Model 3 a lot more if they just brought over a bunch of Model X features. Like if they moved this column back so the windshield went all the way back and then they just added auto presenting doors and the cooled seats to the Model 3, I wouldn't care about the Model X so much. It's just a lot of features that they have exclusive to the X that make it so desirable. Anyway, still unsure how the Cybertruck will charge on 400-volt superchargers if it's a 1,000-volt system. It's very simple, Ben. You're not capped at 1,000 volts. So the Hummer EV already does this, which is not a new vehicle. It's been out for a while now. Sorry, I'm just getting my throat a chance to catch up. So there's these inverter boxes. I don't know the official technical term. I think Lucid calls theirs the Wonder Box. I'm not sure if that's the official term for everybody or if it's just Lucid's, but a Wonder Box type inverter in an electric vehicle can split the battery pack into basically whatever voltage you want it to be. So the Cybertruck is 1,000 volts. I think it's very likely. I would be incredibly shocked if they don't do this, because it's Tesla and there's so many superchargers everywhere. It would be a no-brainer. But it's not inherently that complex of an inverter. But basically, it can split the battery pack into a 400-volt system so that it can achieve peak speeds at V2 and V3 superchargers. So I because the Cybertruck is probably going to have the biggest battery pack of any consumer grade Tesla. You know, the semi might have it beat, but let's not count that. Um, it'll probably even what I'm guessing is they're going to start with around the 300-mile range Cybertruck. So depending on what your guesstimates are for the range and everything, um, the the battery pack is probably going to be, in my opinion, around 130, maybe 140 kilowatt hours, which is way bigger than a Model S or X. So if already that's going to mean it takes longer to charge the Cybertruck just because the battery pack is so big. I doubt they'll put 100 kilowatt hours in it. That would shock me, because it would be like a 250-mile range Cybertruck, which would not be a good look. Um, I think 300 is kind of the sweet spot for, pickup truck that's towing. And I know most people want 500. I just don't think the cells are ready for it yet. Um, but what was I saying? Oh yeah, the battery pack is going to take longer to charge anyway. So if there was a double whammy on top of that, and they said, "Oh, the only way to charge the Cybertruck is if you charge it at 1,000 volts, so you have to wait for V4 superchargers," yeah, that would be ridiculous. If the charging speed at all existing superchargers was capped at 50 kilowatts or whatever, like it is on the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, that would be absurd. That would be ridiculous. So my guess is, Tesla does some absurd, ridiculous things, usually in regards to pricing and FSD, but not so much in terms of engineering. That's something that I look fairly highly of with Tesla, especially when it comes to things like charging speed and charging curve, charger reliability. Tesla's well aware of how important that is. They get that better than anybody. And if GM is smart enough to put a pack splitter in the Hummer EV, then I'm sure Tesla's smart enough to put a splitter in the Cybertruck so that it can trick the supercharger into thinking it's a 400-volt battery pack. What I honestly thought might be pretty simple, because it may be, depending on how efficient the Cybertruck is, it could be like 120 or 130 kilowatt hours. You could just have maybe two layers of cells, and each battery pack level is about 65, maybe 70 kilowatt hours. So when you split the pack in half, it turns it into a 500 or 400-volt architecture, and then you just charge the one half, the 75 kilowatt hour pack, and then after that you can start charging the second 70 kilowatt hour pack. Um, The Wonderbox Lucid uses in the system the Hummer uses are different. The Hummer splits its pack into. I know the numbers are different. I'm talking about the terminology. Um, the Wonderbox in the Lucid is limited to 50 kilowatts, yes, but that was because Lucid, when they designed it, did not realize that the supercharger network was going to open up. So they weren't thinking of that. For the most, I mean, I blame Lucid for a lot of things, but that was something they didn't anticipate. I'm 99% certain that if Lucid knew that the supercharger network was going to be open and NAX was going to be free to use, that they would have built in a Wonderbox that could handle the 400 volts. It makes so much sense to do that. They have so much to gain. It's really not that complicated of a part. It's just something you have to design and prepare for. And they didn't design and prepare for it because they didn't think it would be important. Um, Jacob says, my parents got a Model X Plaid. It's insane. My Model 3 feels so boring now. The X is just a whole different vibe, better in every way. Yeah, I mean, I will say the Model 3 still, in my opinion, has the best rear visibility of any Tesla, having sat in all of them. Um, Looking out the rear view mirror of a Model Y or a Model X just feels pitiful compared to the 3. I feel like I can see so much more. Um, And yeah, it's better in every way, but because it's a bit more complicated of a vehicle, I feel like it's more prone to having service issues. I've heard so many bad stories about the Falcon Wing doors breaking and misalignments and that kind of thing. Also, the windshield costs way more to repair. You know, I got a crack in my Model 3 windshield. Um, it's not growing, so I don't think we're going to replace it just yet. But when we do replace it, we'll see what insurance covers, but it should be just a couple $100. Whereas if you had to replace a Model X windshield, oh my God, it's like thousands. Do we know what batteries are being used in Cybertruck? Yes, they're called the Cyber Cell, as Drew Baglino has deemed it, and they're 4680 cells with 10% higher energy density than the 4680s they're using in the Model Y, which is honestly still not very good because the cells put in the Model Y are not that energy dense. So with a 10% energy density improvement, the cells in the Cybertruck should be about on par with the energy density of 2170 cells. I think the only advantage, though, with making them 4680 instead of 2170 is cost. They can probably build them for cheaper. And 4680s, as far as I can understand, they can be structural. The 2170 cells, at least with Tesla's form factors, can't be structural. Or they maybe they can and they just haven't found a way to do it, but I'm pretty sure the 4680s are still cheaper to build. Um, let's see. The GM 200 kilowatt. Oh, see, now you're getting confused because you didn't say kilowatt hour. That can be 800 volts or two 400 volts. The Wonderbox increases the voltage of the input to match that of the battery. There's not an official terminology is, but my point is just because the GM has a high voltage architecture, there's a way to build into the vehicle through some contraption, which no one can tell me what the name of is. In Lucid, it's the Wonderbox. In Hummer, it's just splitting the battery pack. But you can convert a high voltage vehicle into a lower voltage vehicle. That's all I'm trying to say. Uh, Lucid just didn't plan ahead. Porsche can do 150 kilowatts. You can use the motors inverters to increase the voltage, meaning you need no extra parts. I'm sure Tesla will be able to reach max speed, unlike Lucid. Well, exactly because of what you guys already mentioned, there's no V4 superchargers in the US right now. It would make no sense to launch the Cybertruck and say this can only charge at V4. That would be pretty hilarious, honestly. So I doubt that they would do it. So my guess is it'll have a great charging curve because it's a big battery pack, so there's tons of space for that energy to flow into. And it'll probably have a great cooling system because it's on the 1000 volt architecture, and then even the low voltage battery is 48. So it should be very efficient internally with the battery management system. So even if you plug in the Cybertruck to a V2 charger, it will probably maintain that 150 kilowatt speed for much longer than a existing Tesla would, which is good because you need more energy. So the miles per hour you're getting is lower because the Cybertruck is. There's some crazy Tesla bulls out there that think it's going to be more efficient than a Model X, but I don't think that's possible, especially at highway speed. Um, I have Ionic 5 and it does charge fast on Electrify America, 350 kilowatt. No, Sorry, Pro Easy Life. We've had this exact discussion before. You need a 350 kilowatt stall at EA, but the Ionic 5 doesn't get over 225 kilowatts roughly. Um, I'm glad that you could get an Electrify America station to work though. That's a good sign. The EA the stall has to be 350, but the Ionic 5 doesn't have the hardware to do 350. Does the Plaid have a carbon fiber wrapped motor in the front too? I don't know. That's a good question. I would assume so. 99% chance of V3 superchargers getting 1,000 volt support soon as well. Yeah, I know that the cabinets and the cables and the connectors have the capacity, but it's the actual chargers, the big boxes behind all of them that are not optimized for 1,000 volts. So it's not something that I think they can just send out a software update and boom, all V3s are 1,000 volt capable. But yeah, you technically will not need to put in a brand new V4 station to hit 1,000 volts. You just have to retrofit existing V3 stations, which is still a physical, hardware upgrade. There's still a process involved with that, but it's probably cheaper and simpler than building a whole new V4. Um, yes, correct. The Ionic 5 has 220 kilowatt peak. The Taycan has 270. Yes, the Taycan is a charging beast. It's incredible how well the Taycan can maintain that charge speed. The only downside is you can't use the supercharger network, which is a huge bummer. Um, how long does a wrap last, and what if it gets a rip? I am not the wrap guy. I'm not the one to ask, but as far as I can remember, I think 5 or 6 years. And if it gets a rip, then I don't know. The car explodes? What do you think happens? Like, I guess over time it gets worse, and then you might have to replace that part if you want it to not look ripped. It's like asking what happens if I rip my pants. It's like, use your imagination, I guess. Hey, there's Model Y Mike. Good to see you. He says, do you think there's an easy way to jump into the bed of the Cybertruck? GM usually has a step for the base trim and adds a fold-down step and handle in the tailgate for more expensive trims. My guess is no. I think the Cybertruck is, just like all other Teslas, going to be focused on scale, making it as cheap and basic and affordable to build as possible. So personally, unlike the Rivian, I don't think the Cybertruck's going to have a lot of bells and whistles. Like, I don't expect a Bluetooth speaker in the center console. I don't expect a flashlight. The bells and whistles of the Cybertruck is like, it has a bed with a working vault cover, and it has, a sub trunk in that bed, and there's a decent sized frunk. It's a lot wider, but it's not as deep. Um, But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's going to be like little drop down steps or things like that. It'll just tell you, just climb up on the tire, I guess. I don't know. What size is the onboard charger for the Cybertruck? I didn't make the thing. I don't know. We'll have to ask Monroe when he tears one down. He said he'll buy anybody's. So if anyone's interested in selling their launch edition Cybertruck, I'm pretty sure Sandy Monroe will buy it off you so he can rip it to shreds. Okay. Let's see. I think the most important is the charging curve and not the peak charging speed. Yeah, I mean, it's true, but to a point, but I mean, you could have a great maintained charging curve, but if you're capped at 50 kilowatts like a EV6 at a Magic Dock charging station, that's doesn't really matter if your charging curve is that good. So, that's why we were explaining earlier that it's important that the Cybertruck hits the peak speeds of the station, because the Cybertruck, likely with its higher voltage architecture, is going to be capable of, in the future, 350 kilowatts, maybe more. Um, some people were extrapolating on that at the Tesla Semi event that, Cybertruck must support 1 megawatt charging speed. And I was like, I don't think that's how that works. They're saying that the cables for V4 and the mega chargers can do 1 megawatt. I don't think that means that the Cybertruck battery pack can take 1 megawatt. This is something I hate about Tesla. They're not good at setting expectations. They usually over exaggerate things, but I do think with a higher voltage architecture and a good management system, they'll likely exceed 350 kilowatts. But yes, Once you get over 250, it definitely becomes more of a charging curve question, not so much a peak speed. Like we've seen out of spec showcase many times on their channel with Lucid Air charging versus Porsche Taycan charging. Okay, the Lucid Air can hit 350, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily faster than a Taycan. And the Taycan maxes at 270 kilowatts, but it just keeps that speed all the way up to like 50%, whereas the Lucid hits 350 for like 2 seconds and then it tapers down. So yeah, the charging curve, I agree, is definitely underappreciated, and the peak speed is overrated. But I tend to think that the peak speed, once you're north of say like 150 kilowatts, it doesn't make a huge difference. It's more about, okay, what can the car pull? Um, but yeah, that's the discussion we were having earlier was more about EVs that are capped at 50 kilowatts, and it's like, okay, now your curve can be good, and it's not really that big a deal. Um, Mike says hopefully they offer something. In my Ram, I usually jump up on the tire then over the side of the bed, but the slant in the Cybertruck would make it a little tougher. Yeah, I think it'll just inherently have some disadvantages with that design, but I also think there's a lot of advantages with that design. The biggest one being aerodynamics of having that slope, also having technically more cubic feet of storage in the back that can be enclosed. The Cybertruck has a bigger bed than the Lightning, bigger bed than the Rivian, um, and probably because of its angular design, I think it'll be more aerodynamic than either of those trucks. So you'll get better range and better efficiency because of those raised sails on the side of the bed. But yes, the downside is it will be harder to jump in the truck from the side, and it will be harder to load things in from the side. I was just reading a X thread or whatever you call it. Uh, People were arguing about that online, and the one side was like, that's ridiculous. It's harder to get in the bed or access the bed if you're going from the side of the truck. And the other guy was saying, I don't do that. I would just go to the tail. Like, it's stupid to kind of hang over the side of the truck, especially so many people have lifted raised trucks anyway. Like, we had a big F-350 that we used all the time at my only job basically I ever had was working at a mandarin ranch. Um, and that F-350, it was huge because it needed to tow huge payloads and we were moving stuff around with it all the time. But it was so big and it was so high off the ground, you couldn't access tools or jump in the truck really from the side because the truck was so massive. So even if they put a little level there, or if you were really acrobatic, you could probably hop up on the tire and slip in. But my boss was kind of an older guy. He wasn't going to be jumping around the truck like that. He was like, no, no, just go to the tailgate. You've got a little opening there, and then it's a lot easier to reach stuff. And we had a smaller truck for tiny tools and stuff like that. But my guess is it won't be a deal breaker for most. There's some pros and some cons, but I think that's good that we have options, especially as Ford and GM are going to have access to the superchargers and they're switching to NACS. Um, which means if you want a more traditional truck so that you have a more accessible bed, that's good. We've got options for that. We got Rivians, we got Fords, we got Silverados that are all going to have more traditional style beds. And then we'll have the Cybertruck, which has a bigger emphasis on durable exterior and probably bigger emphasis on affordability. And they're probably going to build more Cybertrucks than any of those other guys can build. And better range, better efficiency, which means lower cost of ownership, better charging. So there's all kinds of pros and cons. I'm not the type of guy that's like Cybertruck is gonna kill every other truck on the market. I'm like, no, I want everybody to have what fits their needs best. And for a lot of people, the Cybertruck will be perfect, and for a lot of people, a Lightning or a Ram 1500 EV will be perfect. Whatever your needs are, but personally, I don't think the Cybertruck will have very many hidden bells and whistles. I think it's going to be mostly just you get what you're looking at, take it or leave it. But I do think it will be probably like the most profitable pickup truck because Tesla knows how to build a vehicle profitably. Yes, it'll be very bare bones, it'll be very simple, and a lot of people will probably criticize it for that, saying, "Oh, my Lightning can do this, or my Rivian has this and that," and the Cybertruck's just so minimal. It's just so simple. There's no gear tunnel. Um, there might not even be a auto powered frunk. It might be just a manual frunk, just like every other Tesla. But similar to what we're seeing right now with all these price cuts. In the future, when they've ramped up Cybertruck, they will probably be able to price it lower than everybody else and still be able to deliver it at mass. I know the Ford F-150 Lightning, they got down to like 50,000 with the tax credit. That's probably like 40,000, but they're not selling that at a profit. So they're not going to be able to build a ton of them at that price point, at least. I think there will be a few you'll find, but they're losing way too much money on them compared to Tesla, who can afford that. And because it'll be profitable, they'll be incentivized to make more of them and deliver lots of them. Um, let's see. I think charging speeds will be around 3C, maybe 4C if we're lucky. Yeah. So for those who don't know, the C terminology Dylan White is using is referring to the peak current speed times the uh, kilowatt hours of the battery pack. So 3C, for example, would, for the sake of the example, like Model S or X has a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. 3C would be like 300 kilowatts. So 3 times 100. And Dylan suggesting maybe 4C on the Cybertruck. So if the Cybertruck battery pack, let's keep it simple for the sake of the argument. If the Cybertruck has like a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, it won't, it'll be higher. But if it was 100 kilowatt hours, 3C would peak at 300 kilowatts, 4C would be 400 kilowatts, but it'll likely be, 130, 140 kilowatt hours. That times 3 would be 500 something kilowatts. I don't know. That still seems too good to be true. They haven't given us official terminology. Cybertruck's 1,000 volts, Mike, not 800 or 400. I hope to God lifted Cybertrucks won't be a thing. Oh, they'll definitely be a thing. I mean, have you seen the video of the Cybertruck with the air suspension maxed out? I think I have that in here somewhere. I try to keep all the B-roll I can. Um, is it? Yeah, Cybertruck. I have it. Potato, yeah. I labeled it potato because the video quality was so bad. Look at this thing. Look at it. This is with no aftermarket accessories. This is just the suspension lifted up all the way. Oh my God, that's hilarious. It looks like it's about to pop. Oh my God. That's an old video. That's from back in February. They may have just been testing it with some unnaturally high thing. I don't know. 130 kilowatt hours would be 390 kilowatts. Jeez. Yeah, that still sounds absurdly fast for me. But again, I think, like we mentioned earlier, peak speed is probably over exaggerated because even if it could hit 390 kilowatts, it probably wouldn't keep it for very long because the battery pack isn't, you know, it's not a 200 kilowatt hour pack. At least not right now. It's higher than my friend back in high school was. It's pretty funny. Is the $100 pre-purchase for a spot in line still guaranteed? Well, a spot in line. It's yeah. I mean, yes, that's how you order a Cybertruck. But it's not in order. It's not like the first person who reserved a Cybertruck gets the first Cybertruck, and then the second person who reserved one gets the second. Like that's not how Tesla delivers their vehicles. Your delivery timing with the Cybertruck will be purely based on where you're located and how close you are to the factory. Probably that's how they've rolled out deliveries in the past. People closer to the factory get dibs. Um, yeah. How many Cybertrucks do I think have been made so far? 100 plus. I think Gregor Truck has been keeping a good tally on that. I think around 100. Yeah. Um, he said a few weeks ago that they were building on average what appeared to look like maybe 6 or 7 Cybertrucks per day. And they've been doing that for the past couple weeks now. We keep spotting them outside the factory. So I don't know if it's much over 100, but yeah, pretty close to 100, I think. Yeah, you'll get it faster than someone who's on the East Coast. Exactly. I wouldn't put too much weight. I still see people online say, I got an early reservation on the Cybertruck. I'm like, that doesn't matter. If you live close to the factory and you order a Cybertruck today, you'll probably get it before someone who ordered it on the unveiling night, but you live on the East or West Coast. Um, yeah, people in the Austin area, I think, will definitely have an advantage. So now everyone's like, how do I move to Austin? But how Tesla figures out where you live, because I don't know if the Cybertruck reservation figures out where it was ordered. I don't know. Based on the way Elon's talked about it, it doesn't seem like they're holding much weight or much promise to people who put down a $100 refundable deposit. Like, I don't think that I don't think that guarantees you much. All that really tells Tesla is that you're interested in a Cybertruck. That's pretty much all it does. It doesn't save you a specific place in line. Personally, if you read the pre-order agreement, I don't even think it locks in your price for FSD. They could totally throw that out if they want to. Um, I hope they don't, but I'm just saying legally they'd be protected if they don't want to honor that. When do I speculate the delivery event will be? Oh my God, I hope soon. Speaking of, Lamar's in the chat, just checking in. Thanks. Lamar used my referral code, so now I'm sharing his referral code. It's in the description below. Um, a lot of you guys, when I thanked you in my road trip videos for using my code and allowing us to have free charging, a lot of you said you should promote a viewer's code. Shares the fans code as well, because my code was maxed out, so I couldn't use any more referrals. So don't use my referral code; it would go to waste. So I've done my best to get rid of my referral code on all my videos if possible. Um, but yeah, Lamar's code I put down there partly because he really wants to go to the Cybertruck delivery event, which you can buy if you have 30,000 credits. And I think he's pretty close. I think he's only like one or two deliveries away. I think they've hit the reservation amount. They're just waiting for the referrals to take delivery, and then hopefully Lamar can take his friend Gregor Truck, our friend Gregor Truck, who's helped me so much over the past few years with Cybertruck coverage, all these pictures and all of these updates I've provided for you. I owe so much of that to Gregor Truck, who's on X if you want to check him out. And he desperately wanted to go to the delivery event, but I couldn't go because my referral codes have been maxed out and I didn't have enough credits. I was one code short. I only needed one more referral and I could have gone, but I was at 20,000, not 30. And my code has been maxed out for the year. So unless the delivery event is next year, I'm not going. But Lamar, of course, his code wasn't maxed out yet, and he wanted to go to the delivery event, and he offered to take me with him, but I knew Gregor Truck really, really wanted to go, and I know that Gregor Truck is a bigger fan of the Cybertruck than I am. I'm a fan, but Dylan says, do referral codes work on Tesla-owned used models? I think so, yeah. I think if you click on the referral code in the description, you scroll down, there's the option to either order the Tesla new or view inventory. And even if you click view inventory and buy it used, I believe you still get the code. Um, Anybody need a +1 for the delivery event? This will be my first Tesla, so I certainly don't have 30,000 credits and I really want to go. You and everybody else, Jeremy, I know. Everybody wants to go. I was flattered that Lamar offered to take me with him, but I just felt wrong seeing Gregor Truck. He was asking for so many people on X to take him. He was like, please, does anyone need a +1? Does anyone need a +1? And he's just helped me so much with making my videos. I felt like I owed it to him. Um, yeah, if you really want to just keep up to date and keep posted with everything Cybertruck related, just follow Gregor Truck. He covers every tiny little detail. Um, let's see. After Elon's demo drive, coast to coast drive is imminent. Only thing not done is automatic charging plug-in. I'm fine with manual plug-in of charger. Just do the drive. You mean the coast to coast drive that they promised 6 years ago? That one's imminent? Well, if you mean could happen at any time, including 100 years from now, then yeah, I guess it's imminent. So to answer Mike's question, when do I speculate the delivery event will be? I'm hoping now that they're charging people referral credits for it soon. At first I thought after the Q3 or Q2 earnings call, they weren't committing to the Q3 delivery event anymore. They just kept saying Cybertruck delivery will start later this year. And when they say later this year, they usually mean December 31st at 11:59 p.m., you know. So I was skeptical. I was like, well, that sounds like it's been pushed back. But now that I've seen so many trucks coming out of the factory and they're shipping them all over the country, it makes it feel a bit closer, I guess, than it felt after that call. So I'm hoping like end of September would be good. But I wouldn't be shocked if it gets pushed to October or even later. It's Tesla, you can never. It's probably safe to just never assume a Tesla product will be earlier than you think. I mean, this truck was supposed to come out 2 years ago, so we're already past. It makes me laugh when people are like, "I think they're sandbagging." He's sandbagging the timeline. I'm like, how can you sandbag? They said it would come out 2 years ago. It's already late. You can't sandbag something that's already late. That doesn't make sense. Um, October Apple event while at the delivery event. I don't think there will be an October Apple event personally, but do you think they pushed FSD beta to hardware 4 since Cybertruck will have hardware 4? I mean, I don't think for that reason. I think, most Teslas being delivered right now have hardware 4. And a lot of people are buying sorry, not just Cybertrucks, but all Teslas. Model Y is the best seller, and that has hardware 4. So wanting to make sure you have the latest FSD beta on your most popular car just makes sense to me. I don't think it was necessarily because of the Cybertruck, but yeah, that too. I'm sure people are going to want beta on the Cybertruck. I'd be surprised if it performs very differently on the Cybertruck, because the Cybertruck has different cameras. Not all hardware 4s are created equal. The Model S and X have HD radar, and the Model Y doesn't. The Cybertruck has a bumper camera, and none of the other cars do. The Cybertruck's also bigger, and the cameras are in slightly different locations because of that. So I'd be curious if maybe you could get FSD beta performing one way on one Tesla, and then you try it on the Cybertruck and it doesn't perform as good because the truck thinks it's smaller or something. That would be that would be interesting. Um, Correct. The only product that was early was Model Y. I used to think that was the new normal, but then shortly after that, Tesla was late on a bunch of other things. So I consider the Model Y the exception, not the rule. When the Model 3 and Y started deliveries, was there any indication of when one could expect delivery? Well, they definitely notified certain people. They kept saying, you know, your order is ready. But that was back, when they took $2,500 deposits, not $100 deposits. So that felt like a bigger commitment, I guess. Um, but yeah, I think that they'll probably start with employees for a long time. And because it's such a high in demand vehicle, I think there's going to be a higher percentage of employees interested in the Cybertruck than previous Tesla models, which is why I haven't I haven't fluctuated from my prediction still that the Cybertruck might be restricted to just employees for the first 4, maybe 6 months. Like, we could get a delivery event at the end of September, but I don't think that means any non-employee is going to get their Cybertruck this year. Like, similar to the 4680 Model Y, the 4680 Model Y deliveries started at the Cyber Rodeo event, and they didn't say anything about it. Just I'm trying to remind people about these delivery events. At that event, they didn't say the price and they didn't say the range. Honestly, they talked very little about it. So you shouldn't expect that at the delivery event for the Cybertruck they're going to answer all these questions that you may have, because Tesla changes pricing all the time. That's why I don't think they want to commit to a price in an event. It would be great if they did. I want them to. I'm just I feel like a lot of the time the only person in the Tesla community that has like memory of like, okay, here's what they did. They might do that again, and then they do it again, and people are like, what? And I'm like, that's what I said. But um, yeah, I think that there's the reason that the employee deliveries were only 2 or 3 months with the 4680 Model Y was because the 4680 Model Y was not that great a deal. It was 60 grand for 270 miles of range, and the long range was not that much more. So I understand why they didn't have to keep it exclusive to employees for very long, because they were like, okay, we got to let in everybody else on this now. But Cybertruck, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'll limit it to just inventory for a while. You'll have to find one in inventory. If you're lucky, maybe. Um, the Model Y was early. Thank you for the support, by the way, Jackson Smith, for 2 months. the Model Y they originally said would come out in the fall of 2021, and it ended up coming out in the spring. So it was about 6 months early, which was pretty shocking. Um, any stock in the rumors that the Cybertrucks being delivered across the country are for simultaneous delivery to pre-selected customers? Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning. I love that idea because that would be super cool, but I doubt that's the case because I think they're release candidates, so they're not legally allowed to deliver them. I think it's far more likely that they are for service training. So they train the Tesla service people how to work on them. And then maybe after they're done working on them, they can turn them into showroom models that people can check out. That's pretty believable to me. Um, wait, what are people? You talking about Hardware 5 already? Samsung is being eyed for Hardware 5. Good. Oh, and Lamar said, "Thank you for your help. Super excited to go and would have loved to take you, but you offering your spot to Gregor Truck is very commendable." Thank you, Lamar. Well, I hope you guys have fun. I'll be with you in spirit. um, let's see. Do you think Cybertruck will grace European roads? Not the one in the U.S. They've explained that several times, and it makes a lot of sense. So I don't think it's something they're going to change or budge on. They've said many times that the Cybertruck they're starting with is built for the U.S. market. It's not meant to be international. I don't think they're going to build Cybertrucks in Texas and then ship them to really anywhere other than the US. Maybe Canada, maybe Mexico, but not likely. And they said in the future they would plan on building a, I don't know why he used this word, but he used the word Wolverine style Cybertruck, which would be more compact, I guess, and fit the design guidelines and rules of all the other countries. But pickup trucks don't sell as well in other countries, which is why I don't think that's going to be their focus. I mean, I've made the prediction in the past that people, and a lot of people disagree with me, but I made the prediction that the Cybertruck Wolverine edition, the smaller one, would be the first vehicle Giga Mexico makes, because in Latin America countries, smaller pickup trucks are very popular. There's a ton of people that buy those. So I thought, hey, what a great first generation vehicle platform, right? Because they got to build their new, high voltage strategy with all their own in-house design controllers and their new powertrain. Start out with a smaller Cybertruck because the first Cybertruck's wildly popular and everybody loves talking about it. And people tend to pay more for pickup trucks than they do compacts and sedans. So if you want to start out with a more profitable vehicle, I thought Giga Mexico's first vehicle should just be a smaller Cybertruck that's mostly focused on Latin America. Um, but no one agrees with me on that. I've run polls on it, and everyone thinks no, it's got to be the Model 2, the subcompact. It has to be this little car. And I'm always like, okay, all right. I don't really see why that makes more sense, but whatever. Sure, they sell at decent volume, but I don't think they'd be as profitable. And there's a size problem you get with aerodynamics. Like a smart car is not substantially more aerodynamic than a Model 3 because as you get shorter, you and you're still kind of that same height as other cars, um, you start to have more aero that's a bit more like a wall, and that actually hurts you aerodynamically. So if your goal is to be more efficient, your design has to kind of resemble that teardrop shape that the Aptera is, as best you can. So that's why I don't really understand the obsession with Tesla making a compact car, is because I don't see how it would be that much more efficient than a Model 3. And if you just make another vehicle that's the size of the Model 3 but cheaper, I feel like that's kind of redundant. I don't think the next gen platform is Highland, by the way. I think that's a separate thing. I could see the Cybertruck in Canada. Yeah, at least they'll probably keep it to North America. Um, let's see. I just want to test drive a Cybertruck. Wonder if they'll ever offer that. Probably is not for a few years. Yeah, when they first refreshed the Model S and X with the yoke and the new displays and everything, you could not get a test drive. They were so high in demand, they didn't have any available, barely any available in showrooms. And we tried to book a test drive for months and months and months, and they would not budge. There was a couple Tesla centers that said we could look at one, but they wouldn't let us drive it or something. Um, and the ones we'd look at would usually be like, something, a vehicle that was about to be delivered to someone else, so it wasn't even a showroom model. So because the Cybertruck is so high in demand, I doubt that there will be test drives for many years. It's amazing how many people want pickup trucks in this country. Seth says, all I care about is the price and the range. I know it will do all the truck stuff. Price and range determine if I keep my reservation for March 2020. My guess is it's going to disappoint you. That's if I had to make a prediction. I mean, honestly, the difference in cost for Tesla between tri-motor and dual motor are not that big. Like when you're talking about the grand scheme of the vehicle, um, three motors versus four is not a huge expense. But the battery pack is usually the biggest thing. And because I don't think the cyber cells are ready for the 500-mile range variant, my guess, hopefully they dive into this at the delivery event, but my personal prediction is they're maybe going to start with like three motors with 300-mile range and say, this is our launch edition, and we'll make a higher range version in the future. But for now, we're just going to focus on this. And it'll probably be 80 grand for employees, and then when the employees all get their trucks, they'll raise the price, because there'll be so many people want one. It just won't make sense to keep the prices low. I've never seen a time in Tesla's history where they kept prices low when demand was high. It would be great if they suddenly changed their mind on that, but I've just never seen them do it. So a simultaneous nationwide delivery might be on the cards. I don't think they can deliver the ones they've made. They're release candidates. They're not or production candidates, whatever they're called. Remember that Tesla has its own lanes at the US Mexico border. Oh my god. That means Cybertruck is definitely going to go through. That's for supply trucks. That's not just for Teslas. That's for Tesla owned vehicles because they're transporting stuff between the two countries a lot. A lot of people get excited about that. Tesla has their own lane. Okay. What is it? What does that translate? Dylan says, I've been performing an experiment and I've found that 240-volt AC charging isn't more efficient than 120-volt charging most of the time. I charge my car from 20 to 80% at 13 amps, same kilowatt hour used on both voltages. Yeah, I don't think it makes a big difference, but yeah, you'll probably find slight losses. I think I saw a study recently showing, well, that wasn't about losses, but you have to use a AC to DC inverter when you charge from home. And when you supercharge, you get to bypass that because it's DC fast charging, direct current. Um, SpaceX has its own lane into space. That's true. Wolverine Cybertruck in Australia would be sweet, would get hot enough to cook breakfast, then tackle the outback. Brilliant. The problem with Australia is going to be the supercharger network because there's unfortunately not a ton of stations in the outback. That most of the superchargers are all on the East Coast. Hopefully they expand on that. You think they're planning to drop the price of the Model 3 next year for the direct rebate that will be in effect on January off sticker, effectively making it 35K without the whole tax thing? Well, like I've always said, Mark, they'll price it based on what people are willing to pay. I think with Project Highland around the corner, when they refresh the Model 3, it'll probably capture a lot of eyes and they'll get a bunch of orders to pour in, so they will raise the price because a bunch of people want it. And the production ramp for it will probably be slow for a while. So supply is going to be low and demand's going to be high. That's when you raise prices. And it will make the Model Y look like the most dated Tesla on the website. But um, I think over time they'll catch up on the new car stigma of Highland. It's the new design, it's the new thing. And once they catch up on that, Highland is likely cheaper to build than the existing Model 3. So they probably will be able to raise prices further, um, or lower prices if they need to. But they don't have any problem taking a higher margin. Tesla loves their margins. So unlike Ford and GM, who are comfortable, losing 100 grand per car, They're just doing this for mostly brand reasons to prove to people that, yes, we know how to make an electric car. We care about the electric future. They don't care too much about the profitability of those electric cars yet, but Tesla does because that's all they make. So if they don't make profitable cars, they don't exist. Um, what do I think about the Cybertruck's dashboard? Yeah, it's hilariously huge, and it feels kind of like wasted space, but I honestly struggle to think of things they could use it for. I mean, I'm an Aptera fan, so I want solar on everything. Honestly, I would love it if they just covered the Model 3 in solar cells. The Model 3, especially the rear-wheel drive, is very, very efficient. There's still some times where I get 5 miles a kilowatt hour. Not every time, but usually over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. And the Model 3, in terms of surface area, is pretty close to that of an Aptera. Um, I feel like if we covered the hood with solar, even the dash with solar, which is, you asked about the dashboard, that's why I brought it up. Excuse me. My bad. I would even sacrifice the glass roof. The glass roof is cool, but I would rather it be covered in solar. I honestly don't look through it all that much because I'm usually driving and I don't sit in the back seat. And even the people in the back seat usually don't look through it all that often because it's pretty tinted, so you can't look at the stars through it or anything. It's too dark. But I would cover the whole roof, the whole back with solar. Um, get as many cells on this thing as possible. And even if I know it's not gonna, make it a never charge EV, you'll still need to charge it, but just to have some kind of supplemental charging when you're parked, to prevent phantom drain. A lot of people turn on cabin overheat protection or sentry mode. All those things use power. So if you leave your car parked in the sun, just for a few hours, you come back to the car and it's drained several percent. You've lost miles and miles of range because of all that just sitting around, keeping the cabin somewhat cool and using the cameras. So if you had solar that could at least just power that, or if it's not too hot out, it could even charge up the battery pack a bit. Um, I would take that, even if it's just 3 or 4 kilowatt hours a day. I think it's worth it. Um, no, it's not the most ideal on the Aptera or the Model 3. I mean, the most ideal angle for solar panels is just flat on a roof, angled towards the sun. You can't really do that with a Aptera or a Model 3 because they have to be rounded and you park in different ways. But they account for that. They got 700 watts of solar, but they're not expecting to get 7 kilowatt hours out of that. They're rounding down because of the poor angle of the cells and assuming they're going to get 3 to 4 kilowatt hours. But I would take that 3 to 4 kilowatt hours a day. Heck yeah, that sounds awesome. Will Cybertruck have solar on the vault cover? I'm almost 100% certain that's been canceled, especially based on Elon's more recent comments about solar and how it doesn't make sense on EVs, which annoys me because people are like, oh, it's not enough to charge the car to full every day. I'm like, well, it doesn't need to go to full. We don't drive that far every day. I would rather take some free juice. The problem with, yeah, R1S with solar cells. The problem with that is the vehicles that are more boxy have worse efficiency, which means the advantage of the solar is diminished. In order to make solar practical on a car, it needs to be very efficient, and the Aptera is extremely efficient. The Model 3 is at least pretty efficient considering it exists, so that gives it an advantage. It's available, you can buy it, you can drive it around. But if we're occasionally getting 4 to 5 miles a kilowatt hour, and maybe with a Model 3 covered in solar cells, you could get, I'll round down even, 3 kilowatt hours a day with 600, 700 watts of solar, which I think is reasonable considering the angles and everything. Then you're talking about an extra, uh, what is that, 3 times 4 or 5? 12, maybe 15 miles of free. And then how many is that per year? Say, let's round down. I'll say 12, because we assume that your lifetime efficiency is about 4 miles a kilowatt hour. 12 times 365. That's 4,380 miles of free charging per year. Over 4,000 free miles. That's meaningful to me. That saves you a lot of money too on charging. What areas does Tesla need to improve in your opinion? The biggest one, in my view, is communication. They've had a horrible communication protocol for years. It's almost impossible to get a hold of somebody if you have questions about the referral program, like I do, or what's covered under warranty, or all this Tesla service appointments I've had. They don't alert me of plan changes they make until like 10 minutes before the appointment starts, and um, they're just not very transparent, or they tell me something is covered and then they don't mention what isn't covered, and until it's too late and I have to pay the bill or whatever. So by far, I would love it if there was just a always available 24/7 chat support line that would actually answer questions, because most of the time I try to talk to the people on the website and they don't know anything. They don't know what they're talking about. Um, Expectations is another one. That's mostly an Elon problem. He very often uh, claims things are going to be ready or are close to ready and they're not, or hypes something up like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a robotaxi next year, and then it's not. Um, False expectations, communication, and of course, build quality. But I don't, to me, that feels like a hopeless cause. It's like, okay, Tesla's trying to be a company that builds over 20 million cars a year. A company that's more focused on scale, I don't think is ever going to be that focused on build quality. I mean, obviously, it should be to a point that the car's not dangerous, but little things like how the fabric meshes with the glass, or there's a little crease here and there. I feel like if you're building this many cars, that's just kind of ridiculous to ask for. Um, I agree. I think Elon has a dumb opinion on solar. But yeah, the R1S, I think, is getting more like 2 miles a kilowatt hour. So even if you cover that thing in solar, it would best case scenario get 5 miles a day, 6 miles a day of range. I guess it's better than nothing. Some people might take that. Um, I hope Aptera makes it to market. I'm fully funded for mine, but I'm starting to get worried that even if they do get to my order, that the company could go under. Well, luckily it can be worked on yourself. Um, but I don't know. Even Faraday Future delivered a car, which that company died several times. So I'm kind of like, yeah, it might be a lot harder to kill these startups than we think. Zooks with solar would be a decent idea. That's true, because the Zooks would be pretty low speed, so it wouldn't use a ton of energy. But I've seen so many people mention the gaps and stuff on the Cybertruck, and while I get it's annoying, I don't see how people expect perfection for a vehicle that is the first of its kind. Well, people love to critique. I mean, it's a very expensive thing, so it's easy to make that argument of like, well, I paid 50,000, I paid $100,000, everything should be flawless. And it's like, yeah, it should be, obviously, in a perfect world. Um, but when you just accept and think about how complicated a vehicle is, how large it is, larger things are much easier to notice asymmetric issues, or build quality issues, because it's huge. It's in your face. You can walk right up to it. It's not like a little Hot Wheel. You're not going to notice the little problems with that because it's tiny. You have to hold it up real quick. Oh yeah, this part isn't really, something's huge. It's a lot more obvious what the problems are. Um, and when you realize how many parts and individual pieces and little things there are that go into even a Tesla, which is, more simple than a lot of other vehicles on the road, there's still those tiny little things you can pick up on them and go, oh, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. But um, the truth is, I think Tesla has pretty spotty build quality, but other companies do too. I don't think anyone's immune of it. Like people have anecdotal evidence, like I bought a this and I bought a Jaguar and there was nothing wrong with it. But if you go online and look up build quality problems with whatever car brand, you will find them. I watch detailing channels that find that on luxury cars all the time. Cars way more expensive than Teslas, and they still have build quality problem. It's just there's so many Teslas now. They're some of the best selling cars in the world. Every tiny little problem anybody can post about, and it could be affecting 1% of vehicles delivered, and you'll still find thousands and thousands of people complaining. So you could have a 99% high yield of build quality, and there would still be thousands of people online complaining. So, um, expecting Lego levels of precision on an F-150 size truck is very bold. I think not only is it bold, it's just stupid. I don't understand what that email was about. It was very classic Elon to me. It was just unrealistic expectation that's clearly not going to happen. 10 micron level precision is just, you're going to end up throwing out half the trucks you build if you expect that. Put half of them aside for service alignment. And then that'll stack up at the factory. Tesla will realize this is becoming too much of a problem. We should just deliver these and expect our service centers to fix the problems that customers notice. And that's what they did with every vehicle. And I'm sure they'll do the same thing. Um, they'll probably do the same thing with the Cybertruck. I think, once again, false expectations. That's a big problem with Tesla. Let's see. Faraday is still alive. Yeah. Companies like Honda and Toyota build millions of vehicles each year, and they have a reputation for solid build quality. They have a reputation, but I don't think it's true. Like, I know tons of people with Toyotas and Hondas that have all kinds of build quality problems. Um, it doesn't get talked about as much because it's not as interesting. Tesla just is a hype word. That's why news media will try to work Tesla into titles and thumbnails as much as possible. Tesla alternatives or Tesla competitors, um, but no, the idea that those vehicles don't have build quality problems is ridiculous. I know like several people with Toyota Camrys, and I see build issues with them. They're just, most people just put up with them. I will concede and admit that Tesla's build quality is probably worse than others, but I don't think anyone's really perfect. Um, these luxury brands have terrible quality. On my Twitter X, I posted a comparison video showing the difference between a $140,000 Mercedes S-Class versus a base Model 3 interior quality. So many people were saying it's fake. I mean, what part is fake? I mean, it's just, I don't think cars were ever perfectly built. It's just we have the internet now. These days, it's anybody can find any tiny build quality thing and make a post on it that can get millions of impressions. It's and it's all anecdotal. Again, you could take delivery of one Honda Civic and not have any problems and say, okay, see, Honda has great build quality. But that doesn't mean thousands of people don't have problems with theirs. Um, yeah, the iPhone killer, exactly. Could I hope to get my Cybertruck delivered to Colorado before anybody in California? Maybe. I don't think at that scale it's necessarily about proximity anymore. I don't think it's that much, but um, I think it's going to depend more on how many reservations are in your area. So if Tesla sees a large hot pocket of Cybertruck orders in one region, they'll be more inclined to ship a bunch of trucks to that region. So if there's a bunch of people in Colorado that all have a Cybertruck order, they'll probably send a batch to you. It just depends on where you are. If you're in the middle of nowhere with a Cybertruck reservation and no one else around you really got one, there's probably less likely that they're going to ship that one truck just to your local center. Um, so again, I don't think this is going to roll out super fast. I still think it's incredibly, in fact, not only possible, it's probably likely that many of you with Cybertruck reservations still might not have it, still might not have your truck a year from now. It could take that long, depending on where you are. There's probably a lot more orders in California. Yeah, definitely. Um, let's see. Casting only gets you so far. The error increases as you scale bigger, both in size and production amount. Yeah, I mean, castings can help because there's less things that have to mesh together properly. But most of the build quality complaints people have, I don't think is because of castings versus no castings. It's usually interior stuff. That usually stands out to people more, or exterior stuff like the panel gaps and everything. But it's just there's a lot of variables with cars. Cars are big, complicated objects, and there's always going to be little things. As long as you make it safe and everything functionally works, that's really what matters to me mostly. Tesla quality is one of the best, honestly. The Model X is way better built than the EQS. Well, I think it's kind of anecdotal. If you go up and look up studies of how often people take Teslas to service centers within a week of delivering versus how often do other brands take their vehicles to service centers a week after delivery, Tesla's is usually way higher. We shouldn't look at anecdotal evidence like that comes up in my YouTube comments a lot whenever I say Tesla's got spotty build quality. People are like, I took delivery of a Model Y and it was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. It's like, okay, I haven't seen your car. You may have not known of build quality problems that someone else may have noticed, but um, anytime I watch a detail, like I watch out of spec detailing sometimes, anytime he checks out a car, high end, low end, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, Mercedes, uh, VW, whoever brand you bring in, he'll find problems with it. Everybody's got something. Either the paint's too thin or the panel's not bolted properly. Like, I've never seen a car brought into that shop where he just went, I can't find anything wrong with it. It's perfect. And it's the same story with every detailing channel I watch. I've seen several. Um, I got my Camry hybrid around the same time you got your Model 3, and you're right. I'll notice some creaking and vibrating every once in a while, but nothing like the problems you described. Well, that's what I've described, I feel like. But again, that's anecdotal. We shouldn't look at just what's your story and what's my story. You got to look at the vast whole, because I know there's people that have taken delivery of Teslas that didn't find any problems and don't notice any issues. But that doesn't mean that Tesla has great build quality. That's one isolated example. You have to look at the masses. Um, Cybertruck's going to be very popular everywhere in the country. How many Californians will say, "Oh, I guess I don't really need a truck"? Well, I wish they would say that, but it doesn't seem to be happening. For 40 years now, F-150s have been selling so well. Um, let's see. Will Cybertruck be too heavy to get the EPA rating? I don't think so. The Rivian and the Lightning weren't that heavy. You have to be like over 9,000 pounds. Um, but I don't think the Cybertruck will be that heavy. It'll get an EPA rating. It could drop any day now, honestly. I hope we get it. I check the website as much as I can, but yeah, it could really drop any day. Anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning into the stream. I've got to go to a doctor's appointment now. So unfortunately, I'm going to be signing off here, but I love your questions. I love talking to you guys about this type of thing. It's a lot of fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. And I don't know how much active I'll be after this, but I uh, I hope you have an excellent rest of your day, and I hope we get Cybertruck EPA results soon. Thank you all for watching, and have an excellent rest of your day. Bye bye.